Hello everyone. Welcome to the Out of the Box Developer. Long time I haven't been here, sitting here, so it's a great pleasure to be back. I've been in a vacation for close for a month and a month now, and yeah, I'm back, and I'm back with a very exciting topic, right? Front end versus back end. It's a close to a Street Fighter session here. I hope to have to not have anything picking fire here. But yeah, let me quickly say welcome, hello to our guest today. So, hi Chila, how are you today?
Hi, Hugo. Thanks for having me here. I'm fine. And you?
Yeah, thanks. I'm fine too. We have been talking short, and we're gonna have a lot of things to. We're gonna have the International Career Day in a few days, so yeah, we're gonna have a lot to share also until there during the weekend. So let me say hello to Danilo. So hey Danilo, how are you, man?
Oh, hey Al, it's a pleasure to be here. Another session, and today topics is on fire.
Great. And Douglas, hey Douglas, how are you?
Hey Hugo, doing great. Great to be here. A lot of thoughts on this topic. There's a lot of different areas that this goes into. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yes, we do have, and yeah, I hope we have plenty of time to actually discuss this topic. I want to say hello to Pedro too. Hey Pedro, how are you?
Hey Hugo, I'm fine. Thank you for inviting me here. And whoa, welcome back. We were missing you in the last sessions. Yeah,
Thanks, man.
and today will be a nice topic. It's like we had a first round when we were choosing the topic, and then we realized we were like, oh wow, this is a topic that can bring
Right.
fire to the session.
Actually, I think it's good here to start with how we get with this topic. Pedro, you started all the things here, right? With these topics. Don't you want to
Yeah,
share with our audience how we get into this? I think it's a topic that we see a lot of discussion, not only on social media but also during the in my work. Actually, people always complain. Some front-end developers complains a lot about back-end development and vice versa. Back-end developer complains a lot of front-end. And yeah, do you remember how we get started with this discussion?
yeah, of course I remember. Well, I'm a backend developer myself. It's been when I started developer, I always liked the backend stuff and architecturing stuff. And whoa, at that time when I started, all the backend was a discussion. Well, everybody wants to be an architect, and architecture was always about backend because frontend was not a thing at the time. So then I started like then. Well, I started it. I started working with desktop applications. So I, I was it took a while to start doing some web development, and then well last week it was like the first time that I added a PR here in my company in a React application, and I could say, "Wow, it was nice." Say, actually, it's not exactly nice. Nice was not the word I could say, but yeah. And then we realized, I say, man, it's been like quite a while that I've been developing. With why this thing is so complex, right? What have we done that we get to this complexity here, like in front end, So I think that was my moment. Of course, I used some more strong words like last week. I think today I'm more calm, but yeah, I couldn't understand. Say, man, why we get to this complexity? So and if you ask me if a front end is more complex than backend, well, I will not answer that right now. But let's go to the discussion first.
Yes, and also before going to the discussion, before passing the word for some of you guys, let me just say for the people that is watching us here right now, can you share with us here, just to know for who we are talking with? Uh, are you a more backend developer? Do you see yourself a front end developer, or maybe you see yourself a full stack developer? Can you share a little bit and also your opinion about which do you think it's more complex? So paste here on the chat so we can also float this discussion with more point of views. But
Just
then,
remember, your
Whoa!
comments are
The
public.
first comment is Puppet. Can you put that on the
okay,
screen?
we do already have a comment here. So, oh, Basler
Yeah,
said,
Basel, our Java champion.
"Yeah, our Java champion. Hey, Basler, good to see you here." Oh, so he says that there shouldn't be any front end. Only the back end is real.
It's
Users should
satire.
only use
Like this is yeah.
terminal to access the service.
That's a
Yeah,
satirical comment.
that's it. That's a spiritual, man.
We should only use go back to green screens, right? Let's just go back to like the AS400 green screens. Just yeah,
That's all we need.
mainframes. It's just mainframe.
Well, actually, yeah. So I think it's good to, at least for me, I will start just sharing my how can I say my experience with both front end and back end. I see a lot of people that is back end developers that had to do some front end development, and I was one of those developers in few I don't know, I think that was 10 years ago. And I think I had lucky to be this guy 10 years ago when frontend was only jQuery, HTML, and CSS, and JavaScript, and a few JavaScript. So it was quite easier to understand. And then because with this, reminding me those periods, I understand now how we get into this more complex environment with much more options and much more concerns with many other things. So I think that's something that now helped me to understand better and be able to move in both places. But I'm more like a full stack developer because I'm not deep in neither a front end or back end. I'm much more uh, looking for the integration, for the architecture. I can help in both places. I can play well in both places, but I'm not the guy that understands very well the evolution of each place very deeply. So that's why I can say I can try to define myself as I can navigate in both places. Maybe I'm more full stack because of that. I'm not the deep specialist in neither of both. And yeah, how about you guys?
Yes, that's the problem with full stack development. So also my experience is I am more a backend developer, but all the time I am also doing some front end stuff. And as many of you, I started with HTML, CSS, things like that, because at that time that was the only thing that existed. And then all those frameworks they came much later, you know. And with the ASP was a thing, and the GSP servlet. I made a lot of development with JSP and servlet. So that time, first you were started with some client side stuff, and then you switched over to server side front end development, and then you go back to client side again. So there are some waves in all those development in front-end development, I guess.
I would say that my experience was about the same, right? When I got started, the first website that I was ever paid to work on was a I did it in PHP because I just needed quick templating. I wasn't doing any database access. It was a static site for a business that they paid me to put together, and it was really like the perfect solution for the problem I was trying to solve. But on the other hand, even by the time that I had done that web development work, I had also done quite a bit in in other code. Like by the time I got to that point, I knew several languages, C++ and you know C# and stuff like that. So I actually had like quite a large amount of experience with writing code. It was just that was the first website that I needed to put together. But the thing is that when you think about that, like if I go into my professional career, even more doing web development, the first time that I had to actually do some database work, with the code, it was I think I did a little bit of classic ASP back in the day, and you just did everything. You started from, like Chilla said, you started from the front end, and you put some stuff together. You had some calls that you needed to get something up on the page, and then you started making code to go do things inside the page, and everything was in one place back in those days, and it kind of evolved from there into ASP.NET, and then of course I know on the Java side. So I was more of a Microsoft. I grew up as a developer in the Microsoft side of things. So ASP, then ASP.NET, and that kind of thing. So then we had the abstraction put on top of HTTP, which actually I think was a little detrimental. It made more people write code, but still, you were doing some front end work and you were doing some back end work. It's just, there was no such thing. So when someone said, "How did you start out as a developer? Did you concentrate more on the front end or back end?" I would have to say that no, we had to do it all. Like I had to design my own databases. I had to learn database design in order to be successful in what I was doing, because I had to worry about how databases were put together and learn, by stubbing my toe into things, how not to do database, how not to design a database, why it's a bad idea to do certain things. But then also I had to worry about, writing code to get the data out of the database, and then also writing front end code. And by the way, I'll take us back in time. They used to call it dynamic HTML. That was
Yes, I
the
remember
original
the
book
name
for working
GHTML. Yeah.
HTML. That was
I
one of the
was
original books that I had on working with JavaScript to script the DOM, was dynamic HTML. So, that goes all the way back to then. And then, that was kind of my initial experience, and that was over 20 years ago. Been writing code a lot longer than 20 years, because I used to do it. I learned when I was a kid, but you know, professionally, it started out like that. So yeah.
Oh, I can share my experience here. As
Yeah.
Douglas and Sila shared, I started doing some PHP pages, static pages. That was a moment that, nothing else than PHP and some HTML codes, and nothing to render, no database. But I remember in that time that after a while, my first work when I was employed, I remember that I was responsible to do everything. So the front end, the database model, and the back end. And today we have both of parts are mostly separated. And then I decided to follow the back end path. So as Pedro mentioned, he's a backend, so it's been a while that I do not do open any pull request for front end. So it's something that I just decided to follow another path.
Well, that's interesting, Danilo, because yeah, you work with front end and back end, and then you choose to specialize in one way, right, on back end.
Yes,
And
yes.
yeah, the opposite. I was more focused on backend, doing the services, the uh, running up the server. I think I was using. Yeah, I don't know. I believe I'm younger than you in career time, so I already was using Spring, so I was happy with the independence injection already working there, and with few configuration, and yeah, and suddenly and I was understanding the life cycle and everything, and then I suddenly had to do something on the front end, quite quite similar to Pedro's situation. I was dropped to the front end, and then oh, how do I make things work here? I don't know what is the life cycle of things, how when it does starts, when it does ends, and it's totally different from what I was used to. I remember all those complexities, and yeah, that kind of reminds me about um, many things here that you told about experience. Remind me about the history of I think of the front end, right? I don't know much about PHP because I never had used PHP before. But when I started with front end, it was already HTML, CSS, and JavaScript with jQuery. So it was an application.js, and a big application.js file that has everything, and we import things there. Actually, we are importing scripts from the HTMLs, if I'm not wrong here.
Script
And
tags, yeah, with the
yes,
source
yes,
specified. You could CDNs or through,
exactly,
basically, yeah,
exactly.
yeah, or your
And
own
we put
script
the
file.
version, and it just when the HTML is loaded, it just starts download everything from the CDN, and then you have to cross your finger that anything is not broken, and then run your application. And that was the biggest concern with the actual situation, right? um, when I see that, and now we do use npm or a node package module manager, so we can have a bit more control over what version we are using, what kind of feature is inside that version, and we do download it before, bundle it, uh, transpile while try to validate it before pushing the applications to the front, to the client. It's a lot more complexity, but
Yes.
also in the same time, there are some benefits over it. I jumped a lot the history, right, from that when I started to now, and I think now we have other ways too. But yeah, I when I talk about uh, seeing a bit of this evolution, I see a lot of okay, because I had that problem in the past. I can see why we are having these things now. Not maybe not the best yet, but I can understand why we move it to this path. And I don't know if you guys see the same way. I think in the discussion we have some different point of views too. I think it's a great idea to actually share here.
Well,
And yeah, go
Uh,
ahead. Yeah.
can you just add here a comment from? We have some comments in our.
Oh, good.
Uh, yeah, that's just for to hear. Basil is commenting as saying, "Well, personally, I'm not a fan of full stack concept. The idea that you can excel in everything is a romanticized notion that looks expertise." And he continued, "In attempt to be a jack of all trades, you risk becoming a master of none."
That's true.
I actually agree with this notion to a certain extent. If you try to do everything all the time, you're never going to become an expert. Here's the only argument that I've got opposing that stance. If you spent 20 years in the field and you got 10 years of in-depth knowledge from each side, you can architect backends because you've spent years in a row working on backends, and you understand front end really in depth because you've spent years of your life in front end code in a row. right? Then in essence, you've led the path of front end and back end. But yeah, someone who just starts out saying I'm a full stack developer, they're not going to have the specialized knowledge from both the front and the back. And the interesting thing about software development, and this is the thing you learn over the years with enough time, is that the fundamentals of software development do not change from the front end to the back end. The fundamentals of software development, um, some of the things being like writing maintainable code that you can, that isn't trash or spaghetti code all over the place. You can take your fundamentals of design of software from the back to the front and back to the back
To the
again.
back.
Yeah, I'm trying. My brain just went whoop right there for a second. But the thing is that I think in essence, trying to come up and say I'm going to be a full stack developer is, at first. Let me explain this. My opinion, and this is because I've taught a bunch of people. I've taught full stack to help people understand where they want to be. When I used to teach at a coding boot camp, I taught a 20-week course. It was, we went in depth in both sides. But the reason that you teach both and you let them get their feet wet in both is you see where they might have more passion. Do they really enjoy working in the server side, or do they want to craft beautiful interfaces that come to life for people on the front end to be able to use? I actually found enjoyment in both. I actually really kind of like the crafting, the beautiful interfaces, bringing the drawings to life that the graphic artists would give me in my career. Really, gave me energy to be able to do that. But I also had a lot of time in my career to really in depth understand backend concerns, learn databases. I used to write, and some people might disagree with the way that we did things, but this is the way we did things, right? You can't go back and change it. I spent a lot of time in stored procedures. SQL was something that I spent years of my career in too. So some of those days where I'm working in the back end, I might spend half my day sitting in SQL queries, writing stored procedures and understanding databases and understanding how to store data, indexing practices and stuff like that. Because I didn't always have a database administrator to help me out with how to best design things. And I learned to always question again what I'm trying to get at, and I'm going to stop. What I'm trying to get at is the fundamentals of software design for performance, for ease of maintainability, um, just other patterns and practices that you might want to have when you're doing development are in every layer of development. The fundamentals are all there. But you do need to specialize. You need to spend time in each one of those, serious time in each one of those. And if you never want to go to the front end, look, don't ever go to the front end. If you don't want to be there, you're going to hate your life if you go there. Y'all know this. Um, you know, I'm just saying that go where you want to go. But if you do happen to have the time to learn, you'll start seeing the similarities between all of them, and you'll understand. I have more to say on this in other areas of what we're going to talk about today, but I think that's it for me.
Cool. And what about I was that's a really interesting point, Douglas. I was thinking right after that discussion we had. I think it was on the
Monday, last
last
week.
Monday, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
we started with all this, and I was thinking about but we do always say to instead of looking at being attached to, well, backend or front end, they are both ways to solve. They are both solutions to for some problem, right? And we do always motivate people, incentive, keep saying for people to focus more on the problem that you want to solve, and then there will be solutions that we will need to use that. And I was more like that because I have to use both. I have to start with
Mhm.
backend and have to go to the front end because my application has a lot of problem in the front end, and I have to solve there. So in the end, it isn't even what I like to do. It was what I need to do at that moment, and I
Yeah.
believe that's true for many people. Like Pedro just shared with us, I believe that he's not very used to front end, and he had to solve front end problems, right, Pedro?
Interesting enough that when I started working with frontend, it was like desktop frontend,
Hmm.
and at that time, frontend at that time was, well, of course, we're talking about Java, right? We're not talking about Delphi or VB, right? That we could write, you could write the front end using the drag and drop interfaces.
That was
So
.NET,
Ja-
ASP.NET. Yeah, that was yeah. Delphi didn't do that.
Delphi, yeah,
Oh no, Windows. Oh, you're talking about WinForms. I'm sorry. I thought we were talking about web. Yeah,
yeah. No, no,
Delphi
no,
was
no,
a
no, no. I'm talking about desktop, right? That desktop
desktop
applications.
window. Yeah, WinForms or Windows like
Yeah. So
form.
in the
Yeah,
phones, or well, it would be like Delphi or VB or Visual Basic. But
yeah.
well, when I was working with Java at that time, so it was Java Swing,
Swing.
and when you have a big Java Swing application, you start to have like a huge amount of code, because Swing there's it never it uh, 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 is never a uh, visual stuff. All visual stuff, you need to write code for that, right? And then we can see that all front end development was going to that model, that structure. We had that in desktop, because we had to write code for everything. We had that
Hmm.
in Android. If you look at an
Hmm.
Android application, Android, it's a massive amount of code. There is a small amount we can write in that XMLs, and at least in the old Android, right? And then, and when web started, it was not like that, right? Web, it was mostly the 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 HTML and CSS stuff, and 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 some JavaScript. Most of the logic was in the
It's,
backend.
yeah, it was in the back end. Yeah, and I mean,
So
so even back. Yeah,
yeah, what am I saying is that the division was like, at that time the division was clear. We had the HTML to and CSS to make sure that the front end looks good, and we have all the logic running back end, right? And all this 700 pages, we have like JSP, PHP, JSF, and everything, right? But then I remember the moment I wrote a small post in my blog 2010, when Google Chrome was starting to grow, and and the JavaScript application was starting to grow as well. We had at that time like some good frameworks like jQuery, Dojo. Remember Dojo?
uh-huh.
And uh, 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 Ext, and there was some
EXT. Yeah.
yeah, ext exactly. And then the JavaScript was started running in the browsers in a very good way. And then suddenly, I, it looked for me, it was Google that started with it, but Google, all the big ones, right? Facebook, and suddenly they just say, okay, let's write everything in JavaScript, all the logic of the application, and leave to the backend just APIs, and then we can consume, and we do all the entire logic here. Not entirely, of course, but like a big amount of the logic,
Mhm.
even process, uh, uh, you know, and then everything went to the JavaScript world.
You know why,
And
right?
and and
Yeah.
hmm?
I was like, you know why that happened.
For sure, we see
Yeah.
it. We saw that. We all wanted the same interaction with the application as we had with the desktop.
Well, and
That,
it actually
that,
happened.
that's yeah. That's what
No, no,
that's
no, no.
what that's why I started talking about the desktop, because
Well, yeah.
we started wanting everything we had in desktop in the web.
So they did it. They actually did give us, Microsoft gave us that in ASP.NET Web Forms. They gave us this abstraction over HTTP. And I don't know if in the Java side, if there's the equivalent to it, but in ASP.NET Web Forms, we basically had the designer, and you could drag out a text box, and you could drag out a button, and you double click the button, and it took you back to a code behind, and you would say, that would be for an on click, and you could tell it to change the text of a label. And this amazing abstraction, you would have a label sitting on the form, you would have the text box, and you would have the button, and you go and hit F5 to tell it to run, and the page would come up, and you type your text in there, and you click the button, and it would do a post back, and magically the text box still had the value in it, and the label got changed to whatever was in the text box. And see, the thing is that abstraction really ruined, and it ruined a lot of people in being able to do web development, because it hid the intricacies of working with a stateless protocol like HTTP away from people. And people just spent their almost their entire career working in code like that. And it and oh, the one other thing that we got with that, or the pain, I used to remember, like, I think it was something like 15 or 20 steps in the life cycle of that page. Like, you had to page start, start to do things, then start to send out view state, bring in view state, there was like 20 steps involved in this page lifecycle in an ASP.NET project. And I memorized all of them, because you would have weird things that would happen. You would have to hook into those events in the page to make things work when you wanted to do anything other than just change the label. It was, but I will tell you, we did a lot, and we made applications that felt like desktop applications in ASP.NET. But the problem is that when you tried to hide the complexity of working with a stateless protocol, then you had to become an expert in the abstraction, as well as understand HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, on top of that. And then also understand how your controls that you used hooked into everything too, because they would do different things at different levels. So it there was there actually was some complexity in trying to hide that away. And I guess part of what we fixed, there's two things. One, that takes a lot of processing power, right? To be able to do like all these different events in the page life cycle, and people potentially don't understand the performance hits they're taking by doing things in different places, and they make their application work really slow because of what they're doing. I had to really dig in deep into a lot of this stuff because of those performance things. Like, I had requirements that a page had to come up this fast, make it come up faster, you know. And so the thing is that one thing that we got to do is we had pages that came up a lot faster when we just started sending JSON from our from a REST API all the way over to the client. The client could actually do something a lot faster with it than the time it took for us to actually render everything out. We were basically, what we did is we created an edge computing resource off of everyone's desktop computer, instead of doing all the processing on our own server to render HTML on the server side.
Exactly. Exactly. And it makes all sense, right? At that time, when JavaScript started running efficiently
Yep.
in the clients, we could say, okay, let's leverage this processing power to the client as well, as we
Yeah.
did for the desktop. So it made all sense, right? And then suddenly all that idea that we had, that, oh, we had only HTML just to style stuff and everything, and all the processes will be in the backend. We are dividing all the process, putting many process in the client, and then we needed frameworks that could do that
Hmm.
in a bad way, in a good way, right? And then we could see like all the frameworks this kind of fighting each other to be, oh, which one we can lead to this good performance, good implementing good business process, and having a good structure of the code,
Right.
right? In a way that the developers could work and many developers could work the same the same code base. Of course, we still not there yet. Probably people we still
It's
struggling,
close. I think
but
that with
it's
some front
but
end, yeah,
yeah, I saw that all the stuff they are doing with micro front end and stuff. We can see now. Okay, now we can see they actually can work separated in separate teams and almost separate code than in the same application. But
yeah.
what I can say is that we we have lots of work to get what we have today, right? So that's why if I start today and say I lose everything, I didn't see all this. I didn't work with front end since like 10 years ago, and then if I start suddenly today and say, oh my god, this is
It's
it's
crazy.
complex.
I mean, people don't
Crazy.
understand. That's the whole point. Is that there's a lot of context that people don't get anymore because of the fact that these frameworks exist again that hide it away. They're almost doing the same thing that ASP.NET Web Forms did, which was hide away the complexities of dealing with HTTP. Now there's people that claim they're jQuery developers. There's people that claim they're React developers, and if you teach someone only from within the frame of React or only from the frame of fill in the blank, Vue,
Mhm.
Astro, Next, whatever it is, if they only learn from there, they don't understand the reasons why things are the way that they are. They just accept it. So that learned helplessness. They're just like the elephant who had been attached to the stake in the ground for its entire life, and as a big old elephant can't move because they don't think they can move. It's the same kind of thing where you basically look at every problem as if it should be solved by React, or you look at every problem as if it should be solved by doing some development in Angular. If you were kind of raised up that way, where we had the advantage of basically we saw it all come up from scratch, and we could even see the fact that now what is old is new again. Do you know that they're trying to do server side rendering, like they're putting React on top of server side rendering? They're like taking the entire like blows my mind away. When we did it in ASP.NET, when we did server side components in ASP.NET or web controls, it was string concatenation. It was a string builder. It's the fastest you can get on a not JVM. Don't yell at me, please. Um, on top
Oh,
of runtime.
Microsoft guys will kill you, man, and Java guys as well.
The,
You say
the,
you're running S.NET on top JVM. It's
That's right. That's right. It's been so long that it's I've been around so long that sometimes I'll try to put semicolons at the end of my Python lines. Right. What language am I in again? But the thing is that with with all of that, we already had server rendering happening. It was string concatenation, but you made your own components and you could it was visual. You could take and drop your visual component onto your form and it would handle rendering. We've been here. We've done that. Except now what they've done is they're adding a 600 megabyte node modules folder on top of it. Man, if you npm install enough times in your code folder, you're going to run out of disk space, and you won't even realize why. It won't be like, what is going on here? Why is that? You know, why am I using 100 gigabytes in my code folder? What's going on here? you know.
uh,
So
oh,
I mean,
we have a
yeah.
hello from PVZ here. Hey, PVZ, hello.
Hey,
Yeah,
We are here.
not just
Hey, and
PVG.
man, guys, if you are hearing us today, if you wanna put some comments in the chat here, please add that we love to talk here, and we are all old, so we have like years of
In
stuff to
my
talk.
day,
So,
when
Not
I
so
was a
old.
kid,
so please go
Speak
to
for
the comment
yourself.
and oh, say
we
for
used to
this.
code our
Okay,
front end.
yeah, I
Yeah,
know you're not that old. I can say I
we
understand.
used to code our front ends uphill, going to work, and code our front ends uphill going home from work. That's the when I was a kid, we used to have to walk to school every day, and I walked to school uphill and walked home uphill every day. No, I'm just saying that that's the
Okay.
same. That was a reference to that what my grandparent. You hear that from your grandparents or something like that. I had to walk home. I had to walk uphill both ways.
Both ways.
Oh,
it, it
but-
it's some kind of hard, I can say. Yeah.
Yeah, in the snow while it was negative. While it was 100 degrees outside. Like I said, it was just ridiculous. It's meant to be ridiculous and make you go, it doesn't make sense. But no, the thing is that yeah, we definitely have a lot of stories and we've been through a lot in development period. So, you know, comments are
Yeah,
good.
we said
for
we
sure.
said here hello to PVZ, but also Vitor Queiroz from Brazil here just posted
Oh, sure.
a while back. I think we missed his
Hey,
message
Victor.
here. So hello Vitor, hello PVZ. Yeah, please add your comments here, add your experiences here about backend and front end. And then go ahead, Pedro. You were to ask something?
Oh no.
No,
Uh,
okay. Okay, well, yeah, I think it's yeah. About server side rendering, I'm totally with those. It seems to be doing back what we were doing. I think it reminds me many of that. I remember the Google had a tool we someone told here while we are discussing, right? Google uh, something in Java
Google,
that
Google
it's
Web
rendering.
Google
Toolkit,
Web
right?
Toolkit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the name? Google?
GWT, Google Web
Yeah,
Toolkit.
yeah, Web
I,
Toolkit. Yeah.
I, I work in an application with
Did you
in
work at that?
GWT.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's something similar, right?
Google Web Toolkit is something really interesting, right? It was like the first time they say, okay, so let's. I know everyone want to write some big applications to the web, so let's do that. But let's choose a I will flame now. I will make a flame. Let's choose a good language to use in the web. So we're not going to use JavaScript because this is not a good language. Oh my god, people are gonna kill me now. And so
You will be canceled.
Let's use Java to compile to JavaScript. And they create like very interesting applications using this stuff. Like a not known one like Gmail. Have you heard about it?
Yeah, I think they use that for Gmail.
They start this thing for Gmail, and then
Mm.
they people could use that, and then they just I don't know if Gmail is still GWT, but when they started it
Probably
was.
not. Like very far away from that. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
Ah, I
And
see. Well,
George Tavares is saying Vaadin is a framework inspired by GWT. Yeah,
mm.
Vaadin is really interesting as well. Vaadin is one of this stuff you say, okay, let's use Java to implement everything, right?
And you use
And to
Vaadin.
implement front end as well. And let's not put any difference between back end and front end. So you write your front end as you can like inject your Spring Bean to your page, and you're good. And all this stateless protocol we have in between the two are abstracted for you. So
Mm.
you pay a price
this
for
is
that. Then
for sure.
But For
Always
sure.
trade-offs. There's never solutions. It's always trade-offs, and that's where it's kind of
Yes,
interesting where, there was another comment by Andres, where, the monolith server application, right? One of the other cons, like one of the things that's wrong not wrong, but one of the trade-offs that you make when you have a server-side rendered application that everything is within it is usually it's also maintaining some sort of state as well. And there were issues with that. Like, I mean, you had to run, server farms, and from the Microsoft side of things, to have servers that shared state. There were you want to run multiple servers and that kind of thing. There were things you had to do to make that work, because everything was like a cookie based authentication at that time. We really didn't have, we didn't have JWT. I mean, we're really going back a long time here. There was one other thing that I really need to get out, which is that JavaScript was actually not even the language that it is today back in those days. And what I mean by that is not even the language that it is today, not the performance, right? The performance improved by magnitudes, but the language itself is actually a different language. And see, here's the thing. I spent years in JavaScript. So I really got to know JavaScript pretty intimately, as well as my backend languages. Every language, you could do things that are really messed up in every language. It doesn't matter. You got all the foot guns you need. You can shoot yourself in the foot in many different ways. So the idea is to learn the fundamentals, to learn software engineering, and to engineer solutions using foundational principles. And you can't rely on the language itself. But I'm going to tell you something. The browsers didn't work well. They didn't do what they were documented to do. Microsoft was really the head of that one, and on purpose too. Like, it was intentional that Microsoft made their stuff not work in a standard way. You had non-standard web browsers were a big deal at one time. The language itself didn't have basic features that we really could use, but on the flip side of it, though, there were some really amazing things you could do in JavaScript that you could express in JavaScript that doing it in Java or doing it in C# was not possible. So there were times where I really did actually prefer JavaScript, but there was a time where if you told me I had to go write JavaScript, I would have exactly the same reaction that one of y'all may have had being told you had to go do front end work. I hated writing JavaScript early in my career. When I was working in ASP.NET, I wanted to do everything from the server side and render whatever it was. I didn't want to have to go worry about the JavaScript because it was such a weird language to me compared to C#. And that's another pillar of fundamentals, is that at some point you need to learn multiple languages, so that when you do need to go jump into another language, and I mean multiple paradigms of languages, not just like Java and C#. Those things are like, they're related to each other. They're like father and son. They're literally like, that's where C# came from, is Java. And so the same paradigm, but I mean, I'm talking about things like dynamic languages, so you learn how dynamic languages work and people who write code in dynamic languages think. And then those are more fundamentals that you can get. Python is even better. I agree with PVZ. I learned Python 2 years ago, but because of my experience in dynamic languages, I'd done some Ruby and done, and I've done a lot in JavaScript. Python didn't frighten me off because I was cool with it. The Python has some really cool features like comprehensions, that I really enjoy using. There's some really cool data manipulation stuff in Python that I don't have in JavaScript. So yeah, better Python. The thing is, though, JavaScript runs in every browser. It can run on any server that Node.js can run on, where Python doesn't run in the browser out of the box.
And then I think we can open mind here to say, we all are in this stuff because the browsers only runs JavaScript.
Yeah.
Only. And I think it's been like amount really, really big amount of time they are discussing, say, why are you not adding some more stuff, some more language to the browser, or even better, the WASM stuff that would be even much better. Say, okay, we can compile our language to this assembly for web.
Yeah.
Yeah, WASM.
What
Yep.
was it would be it is really it would be perfect. Everyone would be choosing his own language and then compiling to this web assembly stuff as we do for everywhere.
Yeah.
In every other place. Only web has this limitation.
Well, I mean, they did make a Python runtime. They did make a Python runtime that does actually work in the browser using that
Got
technique.
it here.
So it does
Yeah, I
exist,
remember that.
but
What is? Let me find it here. What the name?
but
Do you
there's a
remember?
reason. There's a reason why it's not widespread, right? It's a reason why that you don't see a lot of people using different languages, and that's because everyone knows that when they open a browser project, they open up a web project, a front end project, that they're going to see JavaScript or TypeScript. And that's kind of a convention now. It's going to take a lot to unseat JavaScript because then that means that everywhere that you go, every job that you take, you're going to need to learn how they're using a different language in the front end. It would make it to where hiring people would be, you would have to start segmenting the software development, the web development community out between people who use Python in the browser and people who use JavaScript in the browser. You might not want people who use JavaScript in the browser if Python was you were using this Python layer instead. So there is a convention, there's kind of a like a conventional convention around the fact that we would see Python, not Python, JavaScript in the browser.
Yeah, I agree with Douglas, and yeah, I'm also thinking about if it's even with the same language, if we won't see
Fine.
problems by designing applications for the client and design applications for the backend APIs, because I think that's also different concerns that moves our decisions when we do write our code and make things difficult, right? In client side, I see a lot of events of user or different requirement also coming from the user end user, and we have a lot of different concerns about that. And when we are going to the backend APIs, we do design the structure of the data and the data integration and the data and the business rules there. That is much more harder and difficult to change or have or we can actually structure better than some user requirement that is end user requirement that is something more visual or more experience driven and had to be that way because it's better. But when we do that, we do try to make the design to work that way. It's kind of much more complex and doesn't fit very well on the structure, and the architectural changes much bigger. I don't know. I think not just the language is the problem here. I think also the requirement that we have to tackle in the both sides it's very different. So it does make
Yeah.
the transition very difficult too. I don't know. It's my my opinion here too. I'm
I
just
always
thinking
said
aloud.
I always said that the front end the front end was a very hostile environment, and this comes from the many years I've spent writing
Still
uh,
environment.
basically responsive websites, because your website could display differently on different iPhones. On Safari, might actually interact differently with your Safari on the Mac would interact differently than Safari on the iOS device than no iPad iOS, and between iOS might just be just a teensy bit difference where something you expect to be somewhere was not. And then additionally, Android was just all over the place. It was because people were never forced to upgrade, or because phone companies would never upgrade Android. So you had people with archaic browsers coming around from the Android side. And so I always said that the front end was, and like if you want to hear something like complexity wise, that amount of complexity like shoots way up when you start talking about being able to be compatible with devices that your customers use.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
so we didn't have to worry about that on the back end. Like if you're
Mhm.
doing strictly back end development, it's like, do inputs come in properly and outputs come out? Yeah, we're good. Yeah, make it work on the front end, guys. Bye. And I've been on both sides of that. I mean, I've done
Yeah,
both I've
Yeah.
been there.
Hey,
I've been
yeah, Andres is saying that you control the
But
seven environment, but you don't control the client side. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
yeah,
hostile.
that's true.
The client side is a hostile environment that you have to try to introduce constraints, and that's when sometimes, depending on how much people wanted to use your stuff, you could even put in there checks to see if the browsers were supporting the things you needed to support, and if they were of the certain versions that you needed. We plenty of times said that we only support Chrome now because IE just doesn't actually do anything the way that we need it to do. So sorry, download Chrome if you want to use our. But we had to be a site that people absolutely had to. They were paying us to use our stuff. They were actually paying us good money to use our site. So they
Hmm.
basically we overrode. Like you didn't want to allow Chrome on your network. Sorry, you're going to install Chrome if you want to use this. Don't buy our product if you don't want to use Chrome
Mm.
because it was just too much to try to
Yeah.
to try to handle the hostility of the front end. So yeah, I'd forgotten all about. It's been a little bit since I've had to deal with the level that kind of hostility in development,
Hmm.
but that actually does make front end development extremely complex because I don't even think that that's fixed even today, that you can guarantee that everything it displays exactly the same between even
Yeah,
Safari on the different devices that Apple makes.
yeah. Like it is
Eh,
like you want to release some version of your desktop application written in Java. So, but it has to run in Java 6. In Java 6 from above, and yeah, that's painful, right? In the same way, maybe if you don't.
I'll give
no,
you
not the same way. Not the same way. Java, you can say that Java has like some a small number of version you may need to use, and you talk about browsers. You're talking about like
Yeah, you thought,
thousand.
yeah, in my, yeah, of course,
yeah.
you're right, yeah.
I'll give you one. I'll give you one. So on a Mac, if you use a Mac, then you have an option. You can use a mouse like I've got here, or you could use a trackpad. If your trackpad is the only pointing device that the Mac sees, it hides all the scroll bars. So if you're a web developer on a
Hmm.
Mac and you don't actually have a mouse attached to it, then you're probably going to develop your site with no scroll bars in mind. But as soon as you attach a mouse, a regular mouse, like this one right here, then scroll bars appear everywhere. And that will mess your stuff up if you don't take into account that scroll bars can appear. Ask me how I know
Wow.
because
I
I
didn't
did
know
this. I
that.
used to only use a trackpad, and one day someone came to me and said your site's broken. I'm like, no, it's not. And they came and they showed it to me, and I'm like, what are those? Show up on your. Oh wait, you have a mouse. So just a little tip out there, if you're doing web development and you don't have one of these connected, you may not actually be taking into account that some people will have scroll bars and they will show up in whatever elements that you have rolling off the screen. You think that it's like seamlessly in the page, but when they connect a mouse, they're going to be scroll bars in these elements that aren't even up against the window. It's just going to change the whole look and feel of your site, and it's going to change, it's going to change how the content gets placed. Hostility, like I just added a new element to it.
Yeah. Well, well, I think we are getting to the end of our time today. So let's make the last question is what is more complex, so front
Answer
end
me.
or back end? Well, let's vote here. What do you think?
Who wants to start, actually?
who,
I'll vote.
who has? Oh,
Yeah, go ahead, Douglas.
please.
I vote for the. When I came onto the show, I was going to vote back in, but after remembering some of the escapades I've had to deal with, I'm going to say that the front end is the most hostile environment you could ever work in, and everyone should have a lot of respect for front end developers. It's very complex. It's not deterministic. So, yeah,
What?
I would say the front end's a lot more complex than back end, which is very deterministic, depending on how well you write the code.
Yeah, I have to agree with Douglas about this. The environment, I think it's one very heavy concern we have in the front end. You don't have the control over the environment that will be running your applications really hard. And we haven't even entered in the discussion about all the libraries, all the framework that is released all the time. And if we take very famous libraries like Angular that changed in one version to another, totally changed the API, and everyone had to migrate it if they had to migrate. And I don't know what who didn't migrate. I don't know how they handled this issue. And React also changed a lot during this evolution. I think it's a good idea to change. Of course, they are changing for a better way, but yeah, but you have to keep up to date with that, and that is difficult. I think there is no standard or something that drives the development. It's full of options. I think having lots of options, it's always much more complex because you have to choose from those options. And and for someone that is doing trade-offs of libraries, if you like to do proof of concept, well, you have difficult time doing proof of concept of each of these options that you have. So that's also something brings complexity, but doesn't mean that you can't. It is not a backend also have their complexities, but yeah, some of those difficulties. For me, I think it's more. It's yeah. From it end up for me have this heavy that is that made it feel more complex.
Yes, I agree. so, so my opinion that backend is more predictable somehow, for me at least.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
with front end, I share the experience from Douglas because I was also struggling a lot with testing for different browser versions, not only for different browsers, but different versions of that browsers. And then you also had a mobile device, and we had some applications we had to first say, okay, we want to test. We have this list of browsers and versions that we have to support, and it is a huge thing to test everything. And what you said, you go with all those libraries, I agree. And then you have all those not only changes in the framework, but the libraries what you are using and the wrappers of those libraries. So it's going to be very complex. So at least from my experience, I would say front end is for me more complicated than backend.
Well, what I think, in my opinion, is I can't. The problem is, in like some years ago, if we ask that question, it would be much simpler to say, oh, backend is much more
Mhm.
complex, right? We can. It would be like uh, all the complexity, all the logic, all the rules, all the stuff you need to do that to make your code work would be mostly on backend. So all the complexity will be there, right? And then the backend was the was the basis of what the front end was showing. Always. Not basis, not all, not for all stuff, right? Oh, if the front end needs to change from one page to another page, all the logic of this was in the backend, right? So today is not. Today we have lots of this logic passing to the front end, right? But I still think that we are in in different moments in time from backend and front end. Today we still have like a wild problem in front end that we don't have today in backend, but we had that before. We passed that moment in backend. Today in backend we still have lots of languages. How many
Mhm.
languages do we have for front end, right? Oh yeah, on front end I need to know JavaScript and TypeScript, and that of course CSS, HTML. So and then we can say, okay, if you know this, you are good for front end, right? But backend, you need to choose because we have like plenty of them, right? So even today we can have like Python developers, Java developers, Rust developers, Go developers, Rust developers, Scala developers, and you need to choose. I
JavaScript
didn't talk
developers
about
for
JavaScript
the backend.
developers
Yeah, yeah.
for the backend, yes, right. And then we each one of them has its own stacks and its own idiosyncrasies, its own environment to work, right? So I can say that front end is more complex than backend today. I can say that backend has passed lots of stuff that makes many of these stacks much more stable, that we can even say, okay, now I can do that in my backend, and then the front end that will need to tackle all this wild environment that they use today. But this is just for today. I think it's something we still need to evolve in front end. I think front end will be different in the next 5 years, right? Of course, we're gonna have lots of legacy. React legacy will be like huge, right? But even today, we're still hiring JSP developers because they lots of legacy in JSP that was written before this React stuff, you know. And
Yeah.
so that's why I say I'm not saying that front end is not more complex than backend. Backend is more complex, but we are living different moments in time. So I can say JavaScript will get there. Oh, front end will get there, but yeah, JavaScript will get
Like a pendulum,
Oh,
right? It'll eventually go from one side to the other.
for sure.
I have to agree with Pedro. I bet on backend, and one question that I have is that we just talked about server side applications. We didn't even talk about other things that happens on the backend, like machine learning, data engineer, and all this stuff. That's, I don't know
That's
if it's on the backend, but makes part of it. So I agree with him that backend is a whole world much bigger than front end. But I see that front end one day will be so big as backend.
I mean, sometimes there's
I want to go back to my safe answer, and I prefer to answer then it depends on the application that
Ah,
will be working.
no, you can't. You can't go back. No.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's no. I mean, the thing is that remember the determinism of the back end. You control the environment of the back end. But yes, you're right. There's a ton of
Of
other
other
things
things,
happening.
yeah.
But think about for a minute. Um, with the front end, just the amount of code that's involved that you don't even see. But sometimes there's actually more code that the developers have written on the front end than there's code in the back end. So even the complexity of the amount of code that has to be maintained is going to be could be quite a bit higher, and the amount of dependencies you've pulled in. There's something in that 300 or 400 meg node modules folder, by the way, that's keeping your application running. It's of JavaScript. 300 or 400 megabytes of JavaScript. Yeah.
We need to have a lot of
Mercy on us,
faith.
right?
Yeah, we
Ah,
need to have
ah,
faith. Yeah.
I forget to add. Yeah, we are in the very end, but I forget to add this.
There's some comments in the chat here as well.
Oh, we have some comments here. Yeah,
Yeah.
but let me just add this story about Core.js. I don't know if you know Core.js.
Yeah, I
It's
remember this story.
a
Yeah.
library that handles lots of polyfills for JavaScript to work in different versions in the browser, and that is an library that was maintained by a single guy, open sourced by a single guy, and yeah, he had an
Russia.
issue, and he went to the jail, and he went back for, I don't know, for some years, but yeah, he asked for help, for donation and stuff like that, and yeah, that's something,
Oh
despite all
yeah.
the open source discussion how to monetize and how to help or contribute or any other discussion over the open source. But that's how many things in the web in these JavaScript applications are also very fragile with some pieces that is
Someone goes rogue.
yeah
You're
something goes wrong and it's a single a library that is very core
left
in
pad.
somewhere
Remember left
and
pad
yeah
disaster? Remember left pad? Like the guy pulled left pad off of npm and like broke everybody.
bug everybody.
Oh yeah, that was the time.
Yeah, I mean yeah, when yeah, dependency management is a real issue, especially in the JavaScript
In
realm
the
of
JavaScript world, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
let's just read some comments here.
yeah, yeah I
There's so
see
many.
now a lot of comments.
We
Yeah, go
we have
ahead.
Yeah,
spent way a lot of
yeah,
time on
and there's Alcohol to say, oh, GSCP is needed. I think he's making a fun with JCP, but say GSCP.
GSCP,
Something like
okay. Got it.
I agree. Even testing is much harder in front end. You have tons of
very true.
gestures and other input combinations, especially since the amount of device and input formulas increase for sure. Oh, there is lots of different kind of in companies that was created just for that, right? Just
Mhm.
to improve your ways to test. And I remember that you can imagine if you have an app, you need to test in all the stuff, and how do you test your app in different devices? If you have an Android app.
Yeah. I just remember one. I remember one example here that my daddy is daltonic, and on Samsung there is a feature for
Mm,
people that has this problem if you view, and how
mhm.
we test that. That's crazy, man.
That's crazy. Yeah. How you as an app developer, you say, oh, I need to know that Samsung devices has this kind of differentiation, and then lots of different stuff. You don't. If you talk about mobile here, it's like it's really huge as well.
Yep.
Yeah. George is saying here. Yeah, I use jQuery for some front end sites. It is legacy, but I'm happy with it. Oh, jQuery, yeah. Who didn't work with jQuery in his life?
It was a
Yeah,
miracle.
I love it. I love jQuery at the
Yeah.
time. It was the only way to make sure that the Internet Explorer 6 works.
Yeah, because it was an abstraction. You could write something in jQuery, it works in all browsers. Firefox, Chrome,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yes.
all of them. IE, it works in all of them. And you use the same line of code. It was great.
It was great, and it has these plugins, the stuff that made it even better because we could write different plugins. They were separated, and well, jQuery was a very
It's a game changer.
smart. Yeah, it was a game changer for web development. And what did we say? Different type of tests, yes. Multiple DBs, yeah, multiple DBs. We can the backend still have this, but we have multiples everything in backend. And Andres say, I didn't even know jQuery is a legacy now.
Bootstrap
Yeah, man.
removed dependency on jQuery. If that tells you how much of a legacy it is, like it was a really big deal for Bootstrap to remove the jQuery dependency, and they did. So,
Yeah.
but jQuery is still
But it it,
jQuery.
it, it took it took a lot of time to
Yeah.
today to do that because it was there is something that jQuery did at the time that it was really hard to do. Yeah, man. Wow, it was amazing. Oh, I think we had a good conversation.
Yeah, I think I at least remember a lot of old stuff that somewhere in the past I touched it on and yeah, that was amazing to remember all of this. I think it was good times too.
Are you going to share some books?
Oh yeah, who wants to start?
Oh,
Oh, I can
before
start.
I would say that before we start sharing our books, let's remember that this week we are going to have the International Dev Career
Ooh,
events that we are running. So I don't have the link here if you have it.
Let me grab the link
It's
here.
yes, and career day.
It's totally free and 100% online. So
It's not totally free. There is there is some free ticket, but there is some paid
oh
ticket as well.
I didn't
Uh,
know.
yeah, and if someone have find the link here, please.
Oh,
And we all will be giving talks there, right? I will be giving a talk about about tips to use AI to get your international career job, right? And I created a new ebook for that. But it's in Portuguese, okay? So I will be sharing here. So if someone it's a book that has all the part of the let's use ChatGPT to help us in creating our CV, creating our improving our LinkedIn and and all this stuff. So I create yeah careerday.dev, and that's what I here be sharing this same ebook in my talk there in Career Day as well.
Uh, can
Did,
we share the
did,
link
did you
here
face?
on the chat?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I can't. Can you
Yeah,
copy that?
I can share here. Yeah. So I send the link here, and yeah.
Okay. That,
So yeah, actually, I haven't prepared a book for today. Um, but every time that I do talk about front end, I always use this. I always had to. I remember that when I developed it, I always had to use this website to understand if I can use some feature in some browser version that I that is called Can I Use. I don't know if any of you guys remember that.
And
So it's a
well,
very useful website that tracks all the features for all the many of the most popular browsers used in the world, and then you can check if the feature that you are trying the bleeding edge feature that you are trying to use actually is available
can I
for
use?
most of the users that you are trying to target. So you can be safe by adding that into your application without having any surprise while you are doing your test, your application test. So yeah, that's one tip from my side when I was working in front end development.
that's a good one, man. That's a good one.
So any other content that you guys want to share with the people today?
I don't have one today. I usually have something, or I can think of something really quick, but it's not coming to me.
Okay.
Problem.
I still have one link.
Yeah.
Uh, it's a YouTube channel from Net Ninja. I used this site and his videos some time ago a lot because he is talking about front end topics and how he teaches things stuff and how he explains his explanations. I liked it very much because it's understandable, very structured, easy to understand, even if the topic is difficult. So when I had a problem, I had to learn this Vue.js or TypeScript, and I went there and I found some stuff, and it helped me at that time a lot. I
Great.
know there are a lot of resources, but this just caught my attention and I liked it.
That's amazing.
Heard of that
Perfect.
engine? A good channel.
Oh, I
Okay.
I
Yeah, go
have a
ahead.
book. I have a book here. I
Mhm.
sent you on the private chat. You can share. It's the People Powered. It's an awesome book that talks about communities and how it's important to build a community on your company to help you to grow your business, your products, and not just that, how you make sure that you, after a while, I know if you have a company that has been created for 20 years, how you ensure that the community is growing as the company is growing too. So it's an awesome book about it.
Sounds great too. Thanks for sharing, Danilo. So I think with that we reach the end of this session. I appreciated a lot the discussion. I want to thanks everyone here and thanks the audience. And yeah, see you guys on the next session in 2 weeks, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
See you there.
2 weeks.
Okay.
See you
So
there.
thanks
See
everyone.
you.
See
Bye.
Thanks, y'all.
you.